Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started. I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Erin Sheldon. Most of you are probably here for keynote this morning, but I'll introduce her just the same. So Erin is the founder of Integration Action for Inclusion and a globally respected voice in the field of AAC, inclusive education, and presuming competence. Erin is a mother to Maggie who lives with Angelman syndrome, where she brings both lived experience and deep professional insight. Her work is grounded in the belief that every child has the right to be heard and included regardless of speech or disability. Her voice is a guiding light for families navigating the world of AAC and advocacy with clarity, strength, and heart. Please welcome Erin Sheldon. She's going to talk to us about using Proloquo in participatory decision-making. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you. So who has a communication system for their son or daughter, like a communication app? So let's go around and find out what they are. So what do you guys use? Proloquo. Proloquo or Proloquo to go? To go, okay. TD Snap. To go. Lamp. Pod. How about you?
I'm a special education teacher.
Okay.
We use Pod.
Okay. How about you?
We don't.
You don't have one, okay.
Pod, and now ASFC is equipping.
Okay. And how about you guys? Pod. Okay. So, so then how can I make this as relevant as possible? So Maggie's used Pod. She's used Proloquo to go. There are certain things that are consistent across all different communication systems. And there were certain things I was going to show in our new app, Proloquo, because especially if you own Proloquo to go, you can trial it for free. You can get it for 6 months to 12 months just to play with our new app, because there's certain things that we built into it, and we're trying to get the whole industry to get other apps to do some of these same things. So I want to show them to you so that you get a sense. So pretty much most communication systems look something like this. Right? The power of the people who've mentioned Pod, the power of Pod is that instead of just starting with individual words, a Pod system starts by signaling to the other person, here's what I want to talk about. I have a question, or I want to make a statement, right? And it just gives that extra context so our kids can be better understood. So Pod is a particularly powerful system. Most other systems, LAMP, Proloquo to go, Proloquo, we kind of start with individual buttons. I work for Assistiveware, so just to put that out there, we produce Proloquo to go. We have the single most downloaded AAC apps of any company in the field. We have for a very long time. But we were able to analyze data from our users, which showed that most of our users, we did this in about 2000, most of our users use our apps to request food, to ask for mom, dad, school, bus, and cookies, and to label colors. And when we looked across and surveyed families using other systems, we got a lot of the same thing, that it's not just our own apps that kids were being so limited, but it was really across different systems. Most of our kids were not learning the power of all the things that they could do with a communication system. Most of the time, when one of our kids uses a system, they weren't sharing an idea that we didn't already know that they were thinking, or that we couldn't discover another way. Right? So we went back and actually rebuilt AAC from the ground up, and we put some of these things into Proloquo, and that's what I'm going to demonstrate a bit for you. I'm showing this because this is light mode. Almost every communication system now allows you to change contrast. So in this case, I just went to dark mode. I mentioned in the keynote how sensitive most of our kids are to light. Whatever system they're using, if you have the ability to reduce light and increase contrast, it will very likely be helpful for most of our kids. So just know that there's probably settings somewhere in the system that will allow you to do that. The things that we have put into this app can go on top of any other app you have. So especially the special education teacher, what you'll see is we've been trying to build tools. This is my job at AssistivWare, is to think about how we actually support teachers to teach through our communication app. AssistivWare, I think we've got about 50 employees, and 4 of them are Angelman moms. So we brought a lot of Angelman frustration with communication systems to our apps and to asking how we could improve, because all of us were really frustrated that our kids were communicating such limited things with their systems. So the coolest thing that I'm going to show you, because this is what we really built to support decision making and teachers, and let me see if I can just get this to behave again. Oh, this dongle does not like me touching it. Is most communication apps have that little message window you just saw above the top where you select a symbol and a symbol or a word goes up into that little message window. We looked at what our kids are trying to communicate, and we looked at what teachers are trying to communicate, and we found that that little message window didn't help very much with a whole bunch of things. So one of the things we did was we created something that we call thinking space, and let me show you one of the things I can do with it. So we can move things around. So this is how I have conversations with Maggie, and you can start with really simple things. I can go into a snacks folder, and we can talk about okay, so Maggie, let's see. I'm going to put like, love, and I'm even going to make this more complicated. I'm going to throw in hate for the record, just because it cracks her up. So I can say, I know that there's certain foods that you really love, and there's certain foods that you like. So liking something means you'll eat it sometimes, but you often won't. And hate means you don't ever want me to offer this to you ever. So I wonder how you feel about pretzels. Do you like them? Do you love them? Do you hate them? That's what this space is designed for, to be able to have these kind of conversations. I started with this kind of thing with Maggie. Now, when I started this with Maggie, I actually took her old pod books, cut them up, and we used them in paper form. So you can take any set of symbols you've got. I wanted to be able to use her actual communication app to have these conversations. You can do this with animals. You can do this with books. You can do this with people. You can start as simple as, here are the things you like. We are all told, as educators, as parents, model the child's AAC system. But then you get stuck with, like, what do I model? What do I say? Is it a whole sentence, right? This is the kind of conversation that we can model with our kids and really start hearing. And if, in the beginning, the first several years, Maggie would rarely respond. And I'd say, well, the way you threw that pretzel on the ground, I'm going to assume that you hate it. And you've done that twice, so I think you hate pretzels, and I'm not going to offer them anymore. But actually, she doesn't like any of these things. I'm going to go into I can do things now, like say, so that's the fruits that we have on hand. Which one do you want? Do you want blueberry? Do you want strawberries or banana? She will almost always choose banana. But there is something about being able to move stuff into this space as opposed to having to choose it from a grid down here that has made it so much more accessible. Now, the way that we've set this up, she also really loves melon. She can say, this is the kind of thing she'll do a lot, is go, well, actually, what I really, really want is melon. And I can be like, I'm sorry, we don't have any watermelon. But I've got this. She's a huge banana kid, right? But here's what we've actually got. And we have these conversations back and forth more. Now, at the same way, here, I'm just going to clear this. I can go into her people. I'm going to go into work, jobs. I'm going to take her caregiver. I can take any, this isn't actually her system, but I can take any person who supports her, I can go into care. And actually, I'm going to do and say, so I want to talk about how well you feel Darcy cares for you. How good is she at shampooing your hair? Do you like how she washes your hair, or do you not like how she washes your hair? Because I hear you cry a lot when she's washing your hair. I wonder if you don't like that. I wonder if you want me to talk to Darcy about how she washes your hair, right? Or I can be like, well, you cry every time I wash your hair, but you never cry when Darcy does it. So I think you like how Darcy washes your hair, but you don't like how I do it. How about how she takes you to the toilet? I heard you crying when Vanessa brought you home the other day. I wonder if it was one of these things. And I can have these I wonder conversations where I can be moving things back and forth. I wonder if you were saying that you don't like that. I can go into a space and say, I wonder if it was, so we just had this event around Canada Day. I wonder if it was the noise you didn't like. I wonder if it was the food you didn't like. I wonder if it was these different people. I'm going to make a button for each person. I wonder if it was this person that you didn't like, and be able to move it back and forth. If you've got photos, you can do this at home with that as well. I just keep some kind of symbol, and I always do the same order. I always do the negative on one side and the positive on the other. And she's getting, after 10 years of this, she's getting better, where it can be more of a bigger scale, where it can be not like, and love. And she will push everything over to the love that she really likes. So this is all based on something called talking mats, but you don't even need to get into the details of that. Just think about how to use a communication system to have more of these conversations. So it's not show me the button, touch this, use your words, tell me what you want, but how we can communicate it. But this can also work, like one of the most sophisticated things you can do with this is I can go into nature, I can go into a food chain, I can talk about producers, consumers, and decomposers. I can go into the animal and plants folder, and we can actually be sorting. We can sort by colors. We can sort by fruits versus proteins. So we really built this to support teachers. That's what this app is designed for. We kept asking teachers to model AAC while teaching, and they were like, do you have any idea how many things I am trying to do at the front of a classroom or during a lesson? How am I supposed to model AAC while I'm doing this? And we talked to families, and families were like, how am I supposed to model AAC while also making dinner, while also taking care of everything else? So we tried to build a tool that allows you to, actually helps you do your teaching, actually helps you have the conversation instead of something that you have to do at the same time. So this is just called thinking space, and you can kind of see all the different things. I can clear this out. I can say predator versus scavenger and go into the animals folder. And we can actually identify which birds are scavengers, which ones are predators. And what we were trying to do was, again, build it so our kids weren't just sitting at the edge of the classroom watching other kids learn, but they could actually do work on their own device. They could sort characters. They can go into their characters folder and talk about characters they like or don't like. They can describe dragons and unicorns. So we can say, what do dragons and unicorns or princesses have in common, or ballerinas? We can put the specific princess in. What do we know about this princess? Is she pretty? Is she kind? Is she beautiful? Which one of these characters do you think is beautiful versus which one do you think is ugly, right? All of these different things. So we were trying to just create a touch screen where kids can actually show us their thinking. And what I've been getting from this, we're still piloting this in a bunch of our classrooms, but this is available in the Proloquo app, but I get so much more out of kids when we can play with this. And when we debuted it 2 years ago at a UK Angelman conference, this dad, he'd opened the bag of snack foods, and he laid out the snacks that were available to his daughter. And the mom looked at me and she goes, he just modeled AAC for the first time and he doesn't even know it, right? So this is Proloquo. This is our new app. If you already own it, it's a free trial. You just, as long as you're logged in on the iPad. If you're a teacher, I can actually get you a classroom license for free and set you up as a pilot classroom. If you have a good relationship with your son or daughter's school and they want to be a pilot, we can get them free licenses. When this comes out, it's going to be something like $100 a year for a school and a classroom to have access to it. But we've got teachers, we've got special schools, inclusive schools where the teachers are using this as their visual supports in the classroom.
I have a question. For the voice, can we change that voice?
Yes, you can. I don't know what happened.
And this is really a tough one. Can it be a relatable voice? Like, can we somehow?
So Proloquo is a communication app. So we use a cappella voices, which almost all the AAC apps use. So there's children's voices, there's adult voices, there's different accents. This is actually being provided to all special education classrooms in the country of New Zealand, and so we're working on a Maori voice right now to improve the Maori voices for that. But yeah, there's a whole variety of voices you can choose from. I clearly did not update my app, and I use a lot of beta versions of stuff because I'm one of the developers. So I should take the time and do that. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of different voices. We especially find in special classrooms we need lots of voices so you can tell which kid is talking. So,
Erin, did you, oh, sorry.
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Do you have it in French?
It is not yet available in French. I'm so sorry. We're working on that. We have a French-speaking Angelman mom who works for us, who is one of the first insisting that we need to do this. So yes, we are getting to that. One of the things that's different also about Proloquo is we found that I found it, especially with Maggie's friends, the kids in school, even for myself, I was trying to model her AAC, and I would say I would need to share information that I would be going on a trip. And I just didn't have the words that I needed, right? I needed to tell her I was going on a flight, that I was traveling, or that she was going on a flight. And I often didn't have the words that I needed. So we built in a few different ways to make sure that those words are there. If I go to vehicles, I've got a folder now called travel, where I've got words like flight, scanner, gate, agent, suitcase, baggage claim, belt, check-in, right? So we've provided those words. But the other thing we found was one reason that I think our kids get demotivated by AAC systems is what they can say is often so simple. So we'll have kids say, want cookie, want cookie, want cookie, want cookie. Everybody's just tuned them out. They're not paying attention. So we've got actually a bunch of kids who do this. What we did was the word want in Proloquo, this is my thing, I invented this, comes with these related words, which a lot of kids don't even notice at first. But I can change want to crave, or desire, or dream, or wanna. And when you show a kid that they can go from want cookie to crave cookie, you'd be amazed at how everybody interacts with them different. And our kids, they generally can't read this list of words, but they just sit here hitting each one. Oh, you're telling me you're craving the cookie. Okay, I understand cravings. I understand having to say no to a craving. You're desiring a cookie. Let's just go get the cookie, right? Like, it just changes the interaction. For you to be able to go from the word go, modeling that we're going to go somewhere versus we're going to fly there, we're going to drive there. This just creates a tool for us to actually be able to say what we're trying to say and not reduce what we're trying to say to just that smaller set of words, which makes us less likely to use it. So this is why it's actually not available in French yet, is there's a lot of translation involved in how we are going to take a word like and have it branch out to admire, appreciate, approve, enjoy, and have that actually work in any other language. But there's some folks working with AI to see if we can speed that whole process up. But we're just trying to figure it out in English first. But But anyway, this is the Proloquo app. As far as I can tell, as a parent looking across the field, there's not been a lot of innovation in our field, so we're trying to do the innovation. If you like what you see here, contact your app developers and say, how come my lamp doesn't do this? Lamp looks exactly the same today as it did 20 years ago. Like, there is so much room for improvement there. Pod books are really easy to cut up your old pod books and do a lot of this if you want to do it in paper. So pod books and the size of the symbols are brilliant for this kind of stuff. But think about how to use visual supports with our kids. The other really important thing is we've got to help our classrooms and us as families realize this is so our kids can help understand us. In the beginning, they won't be using it, and it's okay. When we have these conversations with them about, what they like versus what they don't like, we're modeling, but we can actually show them how to have that conversation. And if all that comes out of it is that they better understand they're going on a flight, they better understand that it's going to be noisy, even if they didn't say anything with it, it supports them to be more successful. Because I think the tradition in our field, whenever we've talked about AAC, like within the Angelman community or within the AAC field, we tend to talk about what can we get our kids to say with this system, as opposed to can we help them understand what's happening around them with the system. And we need to flip that script and say, first of all, are they understanding what to expect and what they can do in a space first before we're expecting them to use this to actually talk back to us? I don't know if that makes sense. So that's the Proloquo app. But that's this different feature, but you can do it a whole bunch of different ways. What we were trying to do was say, could we get all those visuals that a teacher needs, put them all into a communication app so she's not balancing two different things, a communication system and figuring out what are the visuals that she's going to do for this storybook or this lesson or this calendar thing, but actually put them all in one place so she has this big space to work within. So
do you find when you're sitting down and having that conversation with Maggie that you're using this feature more than, her navigating to, one cookie type thing?
yeah, because I can bring a variety of things up into the screen and just leave them there for her to decide if she's going to move them or use them. Yeah.
And did you say this is only available in the newest version of Proloquo?
So the confusing thing is there's Proloquo to go,
Yes.
and there's Proloquo. They're two separate apps. Yeah. They are two separate apps, but honestly, anyone who wants a license for Proloquo, I will share my email and I can just send you a license.
Okay. So it's Proloquo.
It's Proloquo. It's the new app. It's been out for about 4 years. But because the name is so similar to Proloquo to go, it's caused a lot of confusion. So, go ahead.
Off question. So, if your child's in, like, Allie uses Pod, and the struggle's been in the school system is, she's got a great system and a great school, but the trouble is they are familiar with the system that's not Pod. And the struggle is always getting them to do the Pod versus, I think it's, my wife just left, I think it's Proloquo to go, or Proloquo, I think it is. But it's always been a struggle as in they just won't use the Pod because they're familiar with this.
Yeah.
Is that we've kind of looked at it as, if she can communicate and she's comfortable, obviously we want Allie to be able to communicate. If she's, we've used Pod for probably, 7 years or whatever. Is that from your experience, is that a struggle that, do you stop that and you just kind of mold into whatever Allie's comfortable or with her school? Because it just seems like every time we do
I know a number of adults who use AAC systems, and I don't know a single one who only uses one. So what I would say is, just as I'm up here speaking, and today I've sent emails, and today I've sent text messages, and I might have gone on social media, right? Used Facebook Messenger, I didn't, but let's say I did, right? So there are so many ways we all communicate, and I think one of the mistakes that we've often made is we assume our kids only need one. And different tools do different things, right? And that pod system that she has is very well designed. It's high quality. Keep using it. There's a lot in it. But if there's other things it can't do, add onto it, right? What will happen is, when you think about it, we have asked teachers to learn all of these different systems, and they are supposed to this year know Proloquo to go and LAMP, and now next year they get an Avaz user, and then they get a pod user, and now they don't have a LAMP user, but now they've got 2 Proloquo to go users, and the next year they've got a LAMP user. And we're asking them to speak in multiple languages. And just because someone has Proloquo to go doesn't mean that their system looks anything like the other 5 kids with Proloquo to go, because each one's been set up so different. And then we've been like, why can't we get teachers to use the same system as my kid? Right? It's the only people who multitask more than an Angelman parent are classroom teachers and classroom staff. They are multitasking so many things. So I think what we need to do is say, what are they using and how can it benefit our kid? And what is left that our kid still needs? Like, how do we hold kind of sacred the communication system that they use, and how do we just balance that with how else can they benefit from what else is being used in the class? So I would look at what are the other ways that the Proloquo to go system, for example, is being used in the classroom. If they're using it to identify colors, well, she can use her pod book for that. Like, that's not brain science. But like, what tool helps her communicate an opinion best? Which tool helps her understand instructions best? Which one just helps her recall what she did over the weekend so she can share it? It might be all different systems. And I think most of our kids are going to need a toolbox. The most important part of their toolbox is always what they can communicate with their own bodies. Everything else is just an add-on. The same way that I'm up here talking, my text messaging is probably my next most frequent tool. My next might be email, right? And we just have to kind of approach AAC the same way. So our kids tend to be quite flexible between systems, and they really can use multiple systems. So I just wouldn't think of it as an either or.
I know she would really levitate towards that board that you showed, like the slide. It would just.
Yeah, and I think other communication apps are going to start coming up with more of this. We have to stop putting teachers and families in the position of just trying to do so many different things. These technologies were built for the Stephen Hawkings of the world originally, which is, I know exactly what I want to say, I just need to communicate it, and I just need to have a voice output that will read that message out loud. For these technologies to support our kids, they need to do a lot more different things. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot more innovation in the field, the more pressure that we put onto it. So, yeah. Yeah, so by all means use multiple systems. And I see kids move back and forth between, I've seen Angelman kids move back and forth between 3 different communication apps all in the same hour, just depending on which one helped them most effectively do what they wanted to do.
And so they would own the apps. They would
Yeah.
own 3 different, okay.
Yeah, they would.
You have that on one system. Like, yeah.
Yeah, you can have them all on the same
One
iPad.
iPad.
You can have them all on the same iPad. And sometimes it actually helps if the classroom system is different than their personal AAC system, because we don't want kids to start thinking of their communication app as their schoolwork and their homework and what they do to make a teacher happy. And so it can actually be really helpful to have more than one system just for that reason alone. So, yeah. There's one other feature that I use a lot with Maggie. So all of us who work for Assistive Wear who have Angelman kids, they all have some level of visual stuff. So we created a feature we called focus mode. Let's just say we're going to go into the, food folder, and we're going to talk about fruits. So I go into focus mode. And I don't know if you can see it from where you are, but these are lit up and glowing. So I'm drawing Maggie's attention to certain words that I want her to notice, and I'm going to say, here's the options. Here's what we've got in the fridge right now. We've got bananas, strawberries, and blueberries. We've created, it's the rate of a nice slow heart rate. It's a little 60 beat per minute heart rate, and it's just this little flicker. And if the most common thing she does is hit the home button. If she hits the home button, I've already targeted those words in the food folder, and it guides her right back to find them, and it's just this little bit of a prompt. So I don't have to prompt her to say, you know, you're asking for fruit, I don't know which one you want, here's the 3 options. She has this little glowing thing down below. I can do it in her care folder around what are these different things that we're going to talk about how somebody's supporting you in terms of how they're feeding you, how they're dressing you. I can draw her attention to certain ones, but I don't actually have to prompt her about it. But what I have been doing with this a lot is she watches me model so much more now if every time I hit a button, it lights up. So when I'm modeling to her, I just turn on focus mode and just go out all throughout the system. And as I say a word, what did you think of how, I don't know, I washed your hair or dried you off or the soap? And she's much more likely to attend because I can light the buttons up as I talk. So just know if you've got especially, it's a good sign you've got a kid with visual processing issues if they often won't look at the screen when you're talking to them. But if lighting up the buttons as you touch them gets their attention, that's a good sign, and that's one of the tools that we built into this. And again, this is something any app developer can put into their apps. You would be amazed at how little feedback app developers get from users about what you want in the apps. Like, ask for it, and you'd be amazed at how easy it can be to get it. Go ahead.
Does it come kind of like fully built? I think that's something I've struggled a bit with Proloquo, how to make it useful for parts like that.
Yeah, so that's actually the most controversial thing we did with this app. It comes fully built, and you actually can't delete what's there. You can add, but you can't delete. This was because of the experience that so many of us had where, so I had set up a pod system for Maggie. Later she moved to Proloquo to go, and the school would just change it and take so much of it out and come up with their own thing. And then the next teacher the next year would do their own thing, and then the new speech therapist would come and would change it all again. And it just kept changing, and Maggie could never learn it. So we figured out what was the most organized system that actually gave teachers all the words they needed, and now you can't take it away. You can't hide it, but you can use the focus mode. That's what focus mode is for. And what we have found is that when schools have moved from Proloquo to Go to Proloquo, they add 8% as many words with Proloquo as they used to with Proloquo to Go. In Proloquo to Go, they just didn't have enough words, right? A lot of teachers were, most AAC systems only have a few thousand words. So teachers are like, I'm trying to teach all these things and I just don't have the words I need. So they're constantly adding buttons, and it's a big part of their workload. We've got 16,000 words in Proloquo. So we just find people don't need to add words, and now they don't keep changing the system. And so kids are learning it much faster, and adults are learning it much faster. So you can add, and you can create your own folder from scratch, whatever you want to do. You always have these words here at the top. Whatever folder you go into, but I could go in and just create a new folder. You can see the space I've got to create additional folders there. But what we find is that families and teachers need something really consistent that doesn't keep changing. We found when we did research on Proloquo to Go, most kids have their complete system changed about every 6 times in a year in the first year. Someone comes in and changes everything again, and then goes, well, they're still not having sex, so we're going to change it again. After 4 or 5 years of many of these communication apps, so many words have been added in so many different places that just to get to that word, you have to go to school and then this folder and then this folder and that folder. Kids don't even try to use the words. So we had to come up with a really efficient way to have kind of all the words in one place. So that's what we were trying to do here. So, go ahead.
So with all your experience around the world, how often have you come across children who are, or adults who are using some sign language as well?
I would say sign language is very common. The biggest issue with our folks who use sign language is that it doesn't tend to be a standard sign language. It's their own individual signs. I haven't met anyone with Angelman who has a fluent signed language as opposed to a number of signs, which means that the only people who can understand what they're signing are the people who know them very best, right? So then they end up using their signs the same way that so many of our kids use their communication system, which is just to request frequent things as opposed to actually being able to get more thoughts out of their heads. So.
I do know of, I'm an interpreter.
Okay.
So I'm an interpreter. And one of my colleagues out west had a daughter with Angelman's, and she put her into deaf daycare. So totally nonverbal, everybody was signing, and this girl did pick up about 15 really useful signs.
I believe it.
Mm-hmm. Finished. Honey, daddy, love, you know,
Yep.
basic signs. Very useful, especially when you don't have the devices.
Yep.
You could be anywhere.
Yep.
You know, or maybe thirsty,
Yep.
hungry, just to express themselves.
Yeah, and I would say that example of having about 15 signs is actually quite common in Angelman syndrome. Yeah, to be able to get kind of, I mean, so my daughter has low vision, so she's actually never picked any up. I think that also the dyspraxia can make it difficult. But yeah, I would say a vocabulary of 5, 10, 15 signs is not that unusual. So, yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I think the first question I would be asking with any AAC system is this helping our person understand what we're trying to communicate? And now, how can we use it to better understand what they're trying to communicate? The best system, so first of all, there's no really phenomenal system out there. We just don't have good enough technology yet. The best system was the one that you're using. If you're actually using it, then it is the best system. If you're not using it, there's more that we need to problem solve to figure out what's getting in the way. And it may be that you want to try a different app, but it also may be, you know, do you just not have enough? Sometimes we just need more iPads because we can't wrestle the iPad from our kid in order to be able to do anything with it. Consistently, I've seen that if we're going to have a communication app for one of our kids, it needs to be on a device that doesn't do anything else. If we're going to be able to communicate with our kid with it, it can't also be their YouTube. It can't also be their camera roll. It can't also be their fun apps. So the best schools, for example, that I go to, the communication apps all have exactly the same color case. It is a completely different case, and it's set aside. I think that's one of the other powers of Pod, is that Pod book can only ever be used for communication. It's just, it can't be everything else. So, yeah. What else? Any other questions, comments, stories? What are you struggling with? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear this school. Our school does not use, like, they just don't use it. They won't even model, like, there's no teacher interaction. So this is great to see, but it's at home or it's not at all.
Right.
So it's one of those, like, how do you get the school involved? Like, we've offered services and people coming in, and that's all, because we've done it all. They have no interest
And remind me again what system it is?
in Ottawa here.
Oh.
Sorry, in TD Snap. Yeah.
Okay.
But any of them, because we approached them and said, which one do you use? We'll use whatever you are most comfortable with. Nothing. So it's yeah, like how do you get the school on board when he's there, 8 hours a day and learning, and we're trying to engage them, but there's no uptake from the school too.
Yeah.
And his EA could change 3 times a week, like so.
Right.
Like I get it, I understand. You can only train so many people. But when he's at school, like, he's on his own to hit some buttons at best.
Right.
So there's a big gap in his day of him just.
So that's where I would take it back to that question of what are they using to help him understand?
Yeah.
because you know that they're using visuals of some kind in the classroom, right? You know that they are trying to provide instructions. You know that they are frustrated, that they feel like he doesn't understand some things. So what are they doing to help him understand? And can we, and that's why we invented like the thinking space, right? Was what would help them achieve. You're coming saying, I need you to help my son achieve these things, but those teachers first need help achieving what the teacher's trying to do, right? Which is sharing information. Overwhelmingly, every teacher is trying to share information with our kids so our kids understand the expectations, everything else that's happening in the class. So we tried to kind of be stealth and go, here's how you can share expectations, and oh, by the way, it also works for the kid. So, yeah, but I would say that it means that the way the current communication app is being set up, the teachers don't see it as a tool that helps them be more effective. So we need to start with where they need help being effective. So I bet they've got visual schedules. I bet, right? So you can build a visual schedule here, right? And what is usually happening is the classroom is doing really labor-intensive things to build all those visual schedules, right? They're cutting, they're pasting, they're printing, they're doing all this stuff. So if we can give them a system that's more efficient, that allows them to just grab the visuals they need and put it up whenever they need it, then that's when we get the buy-in from teachers. But overwhelmingly, it's the teachers are actually really overworked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to like, bedtime is like 7 different things. You know, like I hit bedtime, then like toilet, toothbrush, change, whatever, all those different things that come on the schedule.
I actually have to mandate peeing for Maggie before bed. She's always like, fine, I'm just going to pee to get this over with. And I'm like, that's the point. Yeah, so you can, and this has actually been one of the most fun things, is using this as a visual schedule. Half the time Maggie will look at it and she'll be like, I'll be like, oh, you want a different order? Do you want the toothbrushing last then? Right? And we can kind of negotiate around it. So this has been helpful. And sometimes she's like, really, you don't want to do any of those things? Well, sorry, Mag. We actually still have to do these things, right? So it becomes a negotiation and a dialogue as opposed to, Maggie, you know the rules, and we don't have to do this. It's called 3-point communication when, if I say, Krista, I need to talk to you about something, or I want your opinion about something, the other person's body language immediately changes. Like this is very high stakes. When it's 3-point communication, I can say, hey, Krista, give me your opinion on this. I'm not even making eye contact with you. I need your opinion on this. What is this? Your whole body becomes more relaxed. Looking at a third object as opposed to another person makes everything lower stakes. Talking about the routine of what we need to do before bed, looking at it here as opposed to first we do this, then we do this, then we do this, makes it lower stakes. It makes it easier to be playful. It makes it just easier to negotiate. And so we're trying to make a tool that's actually, see if you can use your communication system more as that third point of communication, so I'm not confronting you, but it's more, we gotta work our way through this list. What order are we gonna do them in? So, and you can do this with paper that you've printed out and put it, it's just, with my kid, it all just got crumpled or chewed on, which is why I needed it all on an app, because there's a reason we had so many old pod books. They'd gotten their use. So, but if whatever system you have, you can print out, you can take screenshots and print out. You'll just end up with a lot of laminated pieces of things, but you can print out and use visuals in a very similar way. Anything else? If you ever want more information on this in general, if you just Google talking mats, it's a British nonprofit. Oh, apparently I'm not on the internet anymore. It's a British nonprofit that invented this. I'm not going to try to switch back and forth with my laptop, but talking mats is that process of just how you learn to have that structured conversation, where what you do every time you have a talking mat conversation, you set a topic, which might be how well we care for you. You have a rating scale, which is things like whether you like something or don't like it. And you can use whatever symbol you want, whatever you want for your rating scale, and then how you talk about your options. And you go through, and this is what I meant in the keynote about having a predictable, repeated routine, but you're changing up the topic. So the routine is, I get your opinions by asking you what you don't like versus what you like. The routine is, I remind you that this is the topic and this is the rating scale. The variation is that we talk about so many different things. I can use this same process to talk about what you think about the characters in Shrek, what you think about the kids in your classroom, what you think about your different food options for snack time, what movies you like or don't like, what YouTube channels, whatever it is. I can use the same routine over and over and over again, but the topic changes and this changes. And this is the kind of routine that allows our kids to sit down and go, okay, I know what this is. I can now, with enough exposure, I can start participating in this.
Did you find that so prior to this, how long has this been available?
I did my talking mat training in 2015. So I've been doing talking mats with Maggie since 2015. Yes. Oh, this app?
Yes, yes.
3 years.
3 years. So you were using talking mats before that, were you? So
Yes,
now
with
you're
old pod
familiar
books.
With the concept. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. But all the way when she was 2, I could have been doing,
Yeah, right.
you know, just as part of my modeling,
Yeah.
right? Like after dinner time, could have just said, I think you liked these things and you didn't like this, right?
Challenge is you need to have symbols for everything, right? This is so convenient.
Yeah. 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 So I think we're up for time, but again, I think I've got some one-on-ones, but then if
Yes.
people want to catch me, by all means. Oh, apparently I've got a one-on-one right now. But yeah, so this is the new app, and I will share my email address as well as the handouts from the keynote so that people can get a hold of me. And like I said, I'm happy to share licenses for all of this stuff, particularly with classrooms.